Yeah, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to begin this lesson by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'asham Yahushai, Ba'asham Ruach HaKodesh, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule where peace and blessings goes to the elect. Right, this year is Amma 1 from the Great Millstone camp in Trinidad, coming back to do another edification through the Holy Spirit and power, Yahweh, Ba'asham Yahushai. And this going into the nonsensical theory, which I did a video on it yesterday night, but I reviewed the video, said something wrong, so I scrapped that video. I'm doing over our next video. So the nonsensical theory of slavery didn't happen, the transatlantic slave trade. Now, before I say that, before I talk about that, I just want to say this: so-called white man in his kingdom, he literally living inside his kingdom, right? Straight up, there is no doubts about that. Anyways, slavery happened, right? And I clear to see now, like if you don't want to acknowledge slavery, that is your business. But the transatlantic slave trade took place. This Deuteronomy 28 and 68 says, "And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you," right? And that goes into slavery. And by the time people saying that so-called Negroes was over here in America before Christopher Columbus come, there was so-called Negroes over here living, because they're going into the Olmecs and whatnot now. I would say this: they had the Israelites over here, yes. Native American Indians are Israelites. So they were over here. So-called Latinos, they are Israelites. Alright? They were over here. And predating them, you had King Solomon's and Hiram. They both formed a league with two navies: King Solomon's navy of Tarshish and Hiram's navy. Hiram being a Canaanite, and he was a builder. He helped build the temple in Jerusalem for King Solomon, and they sent their people over here to collect, alright, gold, silver. It tells you in 1 Kings chapter 10 and 20 to 22. Alright, so would there have been, but this is going into hundreds of years before, it's going into thousands of years before Christopher Columbus. So would there have been people of Negroid features roaming this land, or was there people roaming this land before before Christopher Columbus come over here, who had Negroid features, and could they have possibly left remnants of themselves being here? Yeah, that's possible. So let's find the Olmecs, and they say the Olmecs was Negroes who was always living here. But the scripture says this. You see, and this is the thing: the Bible has the answer for everything. Alright. Where is it? Second Esdras. Chapter 13 and verse 39. And it says, and whereas thou sawest that he gathered another peaceable multitude unto him, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hoshea the king, whom Shalmaneser the king of Assyria led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land, and that another land would have been Assyria from they left Samaria, which we could get a history, because we'll get at it real quick, right? Where is it? 2 Kings chapter 17. I read from 1. It says, in the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, began Hosea, the son of Elah, to reign in Samaria over Israel 9 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, but not as the kings of Israel that were before him. Against him came up Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, which we just read in 2 Esdras, and Hoshea became his servant and gave him presents. And the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hoshea, for he had sent messengers to So, king of Egypt, and brought no presents to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year. Therefore the king of Assyria shut him up and bound him in prison. Then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land, and went up to Samaria, and besieged it 3 years. In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria, and carried Israel away into Assyria, and placed them in Halah and in Habor, by the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes. So this history here, right? This history here, where he placed them in Halah and Habor by the river of Gozan, right? Nineveh was in Assyria. You had this man, this story, Tobit, right? Tobit was of that captivity. What you name? Right, as I say, Tobit. Jonah, prophesying of the destruction of Nineveh. Tobit was of that captivity, right? That so Tobit was real. Tobit was no made up story. Tobit was real, right? In the Apocrypha, verse 7 says, for it was so that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord. You see, this is the filter, the Holy Scriptures. It filters information and lets you know what is real and what is fake. This is the filter, the Bible filter in your information. It cleanses it, because it's a true story. It's a true book. For so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their power, Yahweh their power, which had brought them up from out of the land of Egypt, from under the hand of Pharaoh king of Egypt, and feared other gods, and walked in the statutes of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out from before the children of Israel, and of the kings of Israel which they had made. And the children of Israel, verse 9, did secretly those things which that were not right against Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai their power, and they built them high places in all their cities, from the tower of the watchmen to the fenced cities, and they set up images and groves in every high hill and under every green tree, and they burnt incense in all the high places, as did the heathen, whom the Lord carried away before them, and wrought wicked things to provoke the Lord to anger. Right? So the Lord letting you know what they did. So now let me jump to verse 24. Verse 24 says, And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon, and Kotah, and from Kotah, and from Ava, and from Hamath, and from Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. Right? So, what go on there is heathen, and this is where you get the belief of the woman by the well, believing that she was an Israelite. She was not. And our Lord, John the 4th chapter, our Lord Yahushua put her in a place and say, you are not an Israelite. You go back in the history, you will read that. So now when we go back in where I was now there, in the book of 2nd Ezra, 13th chapter, 39th verse, 40th verse, says, Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hoshea the king, whom Solomon had said the king of Assyria led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. And we just read about what another land was. And you could read the story of Tobit. Tobit was of that captivity, that whether he fought, whether he was a descendant, he wasn't a big man in the captivity, but he was a child and the parents, and but he get taken and went there, and then he had a child there and whatever. All right, or he was a big man. You could read it. You could read it. All right. Better we read it. Tobit, the 1st chapter, it will tell you the book of the words of Tobit, son of Tobiel, son of Ananiel, son of Aduel, son of Gabael, of the seed of Asael, of the tribe of Naphtali, who in the time of Eneminessar, the king of the Assyrians, was led captive out of Tisbe, which is at the right hand of that city, which is properly called Naphtali in Galilee, or above Asher. I, Tobit, have walked all the days of my life in the ways of truth and justice. Right? Alright, yeah, well, you could read through it. For the sake of time, I'm going to read through it. I'm going to read through all. But the history there. Now, Tobit is a part of that. The whole captivity of the Assyrians, right? So, Tobit, factual. And, right, so the other land was what we read in 2 Kings, right? So verse 41 says, But they took this counsel amongst themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country, where never mankind dwelt. Meaning, nobody didn't come here and build up no cities, nobody never established themselves here and live for hundreds and hundreds of years. That country what they're going into, mankind never dwell there. It never say mankind never set foot there. Mankind set foot here, over here, right? Mankind did set foot over here. Okay? And the mankind that set foot over here, you have the records of that in the Holy Scriptures when King Solomon sent, because the place whenever mankind dwelt was the western world, is where they come, where they eventually come. That would be the Native American Indians, the Latinos, so-called Native American Indians, so-called Latinos. That is where they came over here. But they got that navigation from King Solomon and Hiram, who used to come over here for gold and silver and precious stones. Right? It says that they might there keep their statues which they never kept in their own land, and they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow places of the river. For the Most High then showed signs for them, and held still the flood by the narrow places of the river. And I believe when you go on a map, you watch the Euphrates, it come from Assyria, they come and Tazadakba, see break down that too. They come around the horn, and then they went down, they sailed down, straight down from Africa, and then they had the Cape Horn in the bottom of Africa. They sailed there and they come up. And when you come up from around there, you're heading straight into South America. Yeah, you're heading straight there. And you could migrate from there, and you could go further and further up north and wherever the case may be. Right? Some remain, and the natives, they went further up north. Right? For the Most High, right, then showed signs for them, and held still the flood till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half, and the same region is called Asareth, which means another land. Arataza, which means another land. That same region is called another land. And that is America I'm talking about. The Americas, South, Central, and North America. So they came over here, but they got that navigation. They knew of this place already. And it said the Most High held still the flood for them, so they could pass, because the Lord was guiding them to come over here. This book of 1 Kings, chapter 10 and 20, it says, and 12 lions stood there on the one side, and on the other upon the 6 steps. There was not the like made in any kingdom, and all King Solomon drinking vessels were of gold, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of pure gold. None were of silver. It was nothing accounted of in the days of Solomon. For the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish. That is King Solomon's navy, is a navy of Tarshish. Alright? Who he had, what nations or people he had on the navy. Tarshish, when you look up the word, is Ham, is a Phoenician people. But we don't know exactly. People could have been, you had to put yourself back then too, in the sense, it could have a mixture of nations. Could have Hamites. You could have bring this man want to walk, you want to walk, you're a good soldier, you jump on, you understand? That he navy at Tarshish to go and bring things for him from this land, from the land. With the navy of Hiram has his own personal navy as well, and Hiram as well could have the Hamite people, but he could have, if it had a Moabite leaving land, or Elamite leave and looking for work, you understand? There's no new thing under the sun. But the majority would be of what? Your people, right? In Hiram navy, whatever, right? We'd say what? Once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver and ivory and apes and peacocks. Why is it once in 3 years? We just read in the book of 2nd is just, namely of a year and a half that trip would have take to make. So once in 3 years, the navy at Tarshish come in. Just the navy at Tarshish. So what would go on within that 3 years with Hiram's navy? They would have stayed in Asareth, getting the gold, getting the silver, right? Getting the peacocks, right? Getting the ivory, getting the apes, So that when the Navy attaches come, load it up and go back. So it's a year and a half to come, a year and a half to go. That is 3 years. So it was talking about over here. So were there people over here already before King Solomon and before the natives and them came over here to live and settle? Yes, they were people. They were people of Negroid descent, so-called Negroid features, right? So there were people. But what the scripture say, never mankind dwelt. They never settled here and stay here. They went back to the hub, which is the known all at the time. Because after that, all things was happening over there normal. After King Solomon, you had empires rise up and whatnot. So they went back over there. You had the Medes, the Persians, you had the Babylonians, all of them things. They was the hub. Man never come here and dwell here and build up here. The hub was the east, so they went back to the east. We don't know. When the work done, how long it take for Solomon? About 21 years, something to build up his house, and the temple. So after work done, they pack up and they go back. And then when the natives came over here, they settled. Right? They settled over here. And then because our second is just Christopher Columbus talked to King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella and tell them about a voyage to come over to the New World to set it up. And he came over here. Which the Lord Yahweh Basham Yahushai and all help him come over here. Right? So that being said now, I brought all of that out to say that slavery, right, definitely happened because there are the Native Americans over here around 720 something BC. They left Assyria after the destruction of Nineveh, well, probably before, so like Nineveh get destroyed, and they left. They came over here, and they live here, and they live here, and they live here, and they, you understand? For almost 2,000 years, right? Before Christopher Columbus come, and they're doing what they had to do, living, and however they live. Some of them live like heathens, whatever. But the so-called Negroes now, in a big way, they ruled Europe after the fall of Rome, becoming Moors, right? Becoming Muslims, which is freaking basically, I believe the Moors are Muslims. The Moors was Muslims, if I'm mistaken. Becoming Catholics and ruling Europe, because Rome fell and they took over the so-called Negroes. Ruled Spain, that Portugal, but prophecy was taking place at the same time. Revelation, the 20th chapter, goes into all that, right? Revelation 21, it says, and I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is called the devil, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. So that goes into Rome being bound. Bound meaning going into slavery. Meaning you're insignificant, you cannot set up no rulership. If you bound, you're a servant, you cannot be a king anymore. And Rome, the Romans, the Edomites, they were kings. They cannot be kings anymore. They cannot be sovereign. They were bound. And in the time of that them being bound, so-called Negroes took over the known world at that time. So-called Negroes started to sit down as emperors of the Roman Empire, the Western Roman Empire. One main man is Marcus Aurelius. I believe he had Nerva as well, right after the fall of Domitian. He had Septimius Severus. He had his son Caracalla. Right? This is the Western Roman Empire. Then you had the transition, I believe it's Diocletian. Let me see. This is history that they don't teach in school. Right? I was looking up a map of Bombo. Diocletian. He was a Roman emperor as well. Diocletian. Let me see what he did. Former Roman emperor Diocletian, nicknamed Iovius, was Roman emperor from 284 to 305, born to a family of a low status in the Roman province of Dalmatia and originally named Diocles. Diocletian rose through the ranks of the military early in his career, eventually becoming a cavalry commander for the army of Emperor Carus. I think he separated the two empires. Diocletian's reign stabilized the empire and ended the crisis of the 3rd century. He appointed fellow officer Maximian and Augustus. Right. Diocletian reigned in the Eastern Empire and Maximian reigned in the Western Empire. Because the Eastern Roman Empire started to form. Right? Diocletian delegated further march. Under the tetrarchy, or ruler for each emperor would rule over a quarter division of the empire. Secured the empire's borders and posed from all threats. He defeated the Samaritans and Carpi. Right, look at here. Diocletian separated and enlarged the empire's civil and military services and reorganized the empire's provincial divisions, establishing the largest and most bureaucratic government in the history of the empire. Yeah, Salakia all that, but I get a call here, but Diocletian, I believe, if I'm mistaken, there's a whole lot of history. Right? But I believe he was the one who passed separation in the empires, east and west. And the eastern part of Rome started to pick up real steam, and that way Jake was mainly ruling in the east. In the eastern part of Rome, and a key name is Constantine the Great, which was a so-called Negro. And yeah, they took it over, and the Edomites started to go down more in power. And Jake was ruling, and Jake ruled, and you had Jake living in Western Africa. And the so-called white man came and he took us over from him. He take me down in the western part of Africa. He took us down. And then no hidden history. Matter of fact, you know what? I gotta go and do some. So I'll come back with part 2 for this. Shalom.